I am very excited about our keynote speaker. They will set the tone for this conference. And there's never been a greater need for tech and innovative solutions as is now in 2022 in Pakistan. We are coming out of one of the worst climate disasters the world has ever seen. 150 miles away, lands are still submerged. Homes, schools, and clinics have become lakes. Let's not forget our reality. 1 in 10 Pakistanis are still in need of urgent care, according to the UN. 1 in 10 Pakistanis. Just imagine, 1 in 10 people in this room need urgent care. The threats and needs are immense, but we are here with solutions and creativity. And our keynote speaker today understands both deeply. He's been looking at the world and Pakistan from the lens of climate change for years. Originally a UET graduate from Lahore, he went on to get his master's in environmental engineering and PhD in environmental and development policy from MIT. He's a Sitara Imtiaz recipient, and his team's work was awarded the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize for advancing the public understanding of climate change science. Dr. Adil Najam is the founding Dean Emeritus of Boston University's Pardee School of Global Studies and is the former Vice Chancellor of LUMS. Please put your hands together for Dr. Adil Najam.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you so much. When I grow up, I want to meet this guy you were just introducing. He seems interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. It truly is a great honor to be with you, and I'm really, really grateful to Jahan, wherever she is, for roping me in literally yesterday. All I wanted was a pass to come in. And the price of that was to be here, and I'm honored. I know I have a very little time, so I want to get straight to the subject. This word disrupt. Before we began, Ali, wherever he is, Ali and I were talking, and he was saying in some other context that there are many Pakistans. There is a political Pakistan. There is a Burns Road ka Pakistan. There is a tech ka Pakistan. There is a Maula Jat ka Pakistan. And they don't always talk to each other. I don't know which Pakistan I'm from. I know I'm an intruder in your tech world. And I am very, very moved by the graciousness with which you have given me this time. I don't want to abuse the graciousness. But in some ways, Katalyst Labs, I'm going to try to bring some of that other Pakistan into your world, not to disrupt your world, but maybe to tell you how important your Pakistan is to the rest of Pakistan, right? And I want to make just a few points in the few minutes I have, very quickly pulled together. I could talk a lot about climate and floods. I'm not going to do that. I want to put it in a bigger context, beyond maybe even my expertise. In the next few minutes, I want to raise 3 questions. I want to raise 3 questions, and I promise not to answer any one of them. पहले तो ये कि मुझे answer पता नहीं है. Second, if I give you the answer, what will you do the rest of the 2 days? Third, they are not really the type of questions that can be answered, but they are the type of questions that need to be constantly thought about so that we keep evolving our answers. And I do this with great humility because I know I'm going to now step on some concepts that may be a little tricky. I've picked up these 3 questions from your website, as last night I was trying to figure out कि मैंने कहना क्या. You know, I went out and looked at the wonderful social media conversations happening around these days. I looked at this wonderful, beautiful website, all the material you pulled, and I had 3 questions. And I wanted to share them with you. And again, I do so in great humility, so please be kind. I hope I'm in a room of friends. First is, what else matures when a startup system matures, right? A lot of your description is about how suddenly there is this rise. Ali just told us about kitni rise hai, right? What happens, not to your company, what happens to the system when systems mature? And the reason I say that, looking at the world, living in the US, and so on and so forth. When systems mature, it is not always comfortable. The rate of death also increases. Things become cruel. It becomes not only more difficult to get in, it becomes much more difficult to stay in, right? And I wanted to just put that, but the word I want to hire there is mature. And in some ways, this is the responsibility for this room. Your system is no longer a startup system. It may be a system of startups, and that is not a trivial challenge anywhere in the world, certainly not in Pakistan. Let me just put that there and I'll come back to this. Second question. Who else resides in the ecosystem you call home? I was counting. I stopped counting in 27. The number of times ecosystem was used before me. The one thing I know is ecosystems. 30 साल से मैं ये environment की चूरन बेच रहा हूँ. I understand ecosystems. I think I understand ecosystems. I talk a lot about ecosystems. And ecosystems are very cruel places. Ecosystems are not forgiving. Ecosystems are about survival. चाहे वो भुल्लण इंडस डॉल्फिन का इकोसिस्टम हो, चाहे वो मारखोर का इकोसिस्टम हो, चाहे वो आपका इकोसिस्टम. So it is very nice to talk about ecosystems as Hakuna Matata, everyone together, let's sing. But let us not forget that ecosystems are about survival. And ecosystems happen within ecosystems, and that's the other Pakistan that I want to highlight. Just bear with me. Again, I hope I'm not abusing your generosity, but I want you to think about कि जिसको हम ecosystem कह रहे हैं, who's not in this room, who gets impacted by what you do? Who's not in this room, who's in an ecosystem? It's just like humans in the natural ecosystem. When we build something in the middle of the Swat River, फिर जब river को गुस्सा आता है ना, वो building को ठा करके लेके जाता है. You've seen those videos. And those are the ecosystems that you are also in, and I'll say a bit about that. And the third word, and this is going to get me into trouble with Jahan, which I never want to get into. That's the word disrupt. What else is disrupted when we disrupt? I must confess, I've never been fully comfortable with the word disrupt. वो dis से शुरू होता है. That's a negative word. You have put a positive spin on it. You've put a positive meaning on it. I understand that. It's cute. It's right. It's nice. It gives you energy. But do not forget that when you disrupt something, someone is disrupted. Right? I don't know if Sheikh Saab is here, Kareem wale, but I know what New York cabbies think about Uber. I know exactly what hotels think about Airbnb. Right? So disruption is a responsibility. I'm not talking about against it, not at all. I'm saying that disruption is a huge responsibility. The word I didn't pick up was ye breaking barriers wala. I really thought for about an hour last night about breaking. Breaking is another very difficult word. If you want to break, please break, but break with responsibility. जब कुछ टूटता है ना, दर्द बड़ा होता है. किसी न किसी को होता है. And that's the responsibility argument I want to make. I've taken maybe too much on that slide, but let me run out on that. Again, I say this as friends. What I'm saying is that in a mature system, it is now a question not just of opportunity, it is a question of responsibility. It is a question of your responsibility to the ecosystem you are in. It is a question of your responsibility to the barriers you will break. It is a question of your responsibility to the changes that you will bring. I have a proposition. The proposition I have in the next few minutes is that Pakistan is being shaped by two extremely restless and volatile forces. One is its young people, and the other is its climate. I use my words very carefully. Restless का मतलब ये है कि ये जो forces हैं, they are not at rest, they are changing every day. So figuring out कि young क्या सोच रहे हैं doesn't help you. I can promise you one thing. Each one of you will be less young by the end of my talk than you are now. That's the nature of youth. That's the nature of youth in Pakistan. If you think you know youth, that will change in 10 minutes. Right? So the restlessness means that you have a force that is constantly changing. Whatever assumptions you make about it now, Ali was saying the same thing, changes. The second is it's volatile. I could have used the word violent. We've seen the violence of climate. You know, आप उसको तंग करेंगे तो चुप नहीं बैठेगा. That ferocity of the river, इंडस जो है बांसुरी बजा लें उसके साथ जब वो अच्छे मूड में हो. जब वो अच्छे मूड में नहीं होता, then it does to you. It repeats to you the injustice that you have done to the Indus, right? And that is the volatility of both the youth and the young and of climate, right? Now that is my argument, and what that means is, in a more simpler way, those are two forces. Focus how politics is not one of them. Those are the forces. Everything in the future of Pakistan will, I believe, and I've written fairly much about this, be determined by these two forces. Climate is your single most important security issue, which is about the existence of who we are. And everything in the future of this country is going to be defined by those who today are between 15 and 29 years of age. Right? That's the official definition of young. And these are two forces that are restless and volatile. Right? What does that mean? Why have I put that? And again, I want to rush through this. Don't have time to go into this. Some of you know, a few years ago, I was the lead author of the Human Development Report for Pakistan, which was on young people in Pakistan. So we spent 3 years, one of the best sort of research I have done. Those are the reports. There was a statistical edition. There was a report in English. Then there was an Urdu version. There was also a Sindhi version. Essentially, the question we were asking was, what does it mean to be young in Pakistan? And same thing applies. The people who were young then are less young now. In fact, some of them are not even young. So let me suggest just a few things we found about that. We spent, as I said, about these 2 years going around the country, talking to a lot of young people. We had these 81 consultations across the country, just listening in. By our estimation, we spoke to, in one way or the other, about 100,000 young people. In surveys, my favorite was we put these booths with a camera in the middle of markets, and any young person could just go in and say whatever they want. शुरू में जाके गालियां शालियां देते थे to see whether we were real, right? And our recommendations came out of that. But that's not the point. The point is we tried a lot of listening. This picture, by the way, was done right outside Peshawar 3 days after APS. And I still remember this young guy shouting at me, "Ke tumhe kakh nahi pata," and he was right, of what it means after you've gone through an APS, right? So when we talk about young people, that's also the young people. But what I want to get to in putting this, essentially I'm going to skip all the things from that report. The big headline, as you know, we are a young country. Even though population growth rates are going down, we are the second youngest country in our region. Afghanistan is the youngest. And we will continue to become young. And what that means is that between now and 2045, Pakistan will continue to become younger. So आज अगर मैं एक लाइन में सारे young लोगों को खड़ा कर दूं, पूरे पाकिस्तान के, right? Every young person in Pakistan stands in a line. 2 out of every 3 will be under the age of 30. Let that sink in. 2 out of every 3 will be, this became lots of political salience, mostly because, as our report pointed out, every election in Pakistan between now and 2045 will essentially be determined, the results will be determined by first-time voters. Now you can do this on your fintech. Right? You're talking about an economy where new customers are constantly coming in. Like, the question is, who are these customers? 2045 ke baad we will talk about Afia and myself, because we'll become an increasingly aged country. Then we'll do another report. Theek hai, Afia? Here is just the only figure I want to point out about that. In some ways, it's a figure about sort of where is the tech opportunity. We didn't make it like that. We said to our people, I said to my colleagues, we have all this data, and how do we make sense of it? So the question was, what does it mean to be young in Pakistan? And we said, let us do this. Let us imagine a room like this, and let us imagine we can put in that room 100 young people, 15 to 29, who are statistically perfectly representative of Pakistan. अगर हम ऐसा कर सकें, एक कमरे में 100 Pakistanis को जमा कर सकें between 15 and 29 who are statistically exactly what youth in Pakistan look like, what would that room look like? Right? And that's the circle you see on our cover. I won't go into all of that. But one of the things that immediately strikes you, it's not just that the wheel is colorful, it is divided. We are a divided country and we have created a divided young population. आपने opportunity देखनी है, you know, some of these are obvious. 50 male, 50 female, actually, you know, if you only look at young, they become exactly equal. As they grow older, that changes. Only 15 would be born speaking Urdu as their first language. Right? ये easy वाले, 55 will live in Punjab, only 4 will live in Balochistan. Right? इसमें आप कुछ कर नहीं सकते. It's a demographic reality, but a reality we sometimes don't understand. But the much more interesting ones, the one that I lose sleep over, only 7. You know, what does it mean to be young in Pakistan? You want an opportunity place? Only 7 out of 100 young people between 15 and 29 in Pakistan will have access to a sports facility. Sports facility का मतलब national stadium नहीं है. Sports facility means any ground, any play area that I can use. Think about this. 7. Right? Only 6 out of 100 will have access to a library. That doesn't mean वो जाके पढ़ते हैं उसमें कोई किताब. But if they wanted to go to a library, they could go to a library. Those are the divisions we are talking about. Right? That is also the opportunity we are talking about. That's also the many Pakistans we are talking about. We had many questions, again, I won't go through, but 70 of them will feel safe, which means 30 will not. Right? So 30 out of the 100 will not. One of my favorite one was 89 of them say we feel happy. जब आप गरीब होती है, happiness is a survival strategy. Right? The point I'm trying to make is, if you are thinking about your tech ecosystem, that is your tech ecosystem. Now you know your numbers better. Place the people you are working with and place the people you are working for on my wheel. And that, I think, is the challenge that the rest of Pakistan puts on you. I'm sorry I'm taking long. I'm going to just rush through this. आपने प्रोफेसर को बुलाया, आपको प्रोफेसर वाली चीज मिलेगी. This, as I said, was a human development report, right? What is human development? This is important, I think, for this room to at least share. I may be wrong, right? I worked on development for most of my life. Human development is a very Pakistani idea. I hope people know all the 5 faces that come up. It's a very Pakistani practice. It's a very Pakistani tradition. And I've been teaching it for multiple years, and here is how I try to define it. This definition comes from Dr. Mehboob ul-Haq. Human development essentially is health, wealth, knowledge. Right? So it's not just GDP. Human development kya hoti hai? Health plus wealth plus knowledge. Why am I putting this in this room? I'm guessing, if I really asked everyone, nearly everything you are doing, either as an investor or as a startup, falls into one of those 3 things. You're working on one of those 3 things. I hope. Because that's where development comes from. In a way, मेरे students को अमेरिका में इतनी उर्दू या पंजाबी आ जाती है. The best way to think about development is the answer that someone gives when you ask them the following question. क्या हाल है? हिंदी में क्या होगा? क्या हाल है? क्या हाल है? Right? It is the answer that someone gives you when you ask them the question, how are you? When you ask, try this afterwards. When you ask someone, how are you? They don't tell you their GDP. They don't tell you their startup rate. They don't tell you their Gini coefficient. They give only one of 3 types of answers. My son got a job. I read a good book. I saw a wonderful movie. My back aches. I recovered from COVID. Try it as many times as you want. You get one of only 3 types of answer. It is either about health, it's about wealth, it's about development. this slightly older graph, like still relevant. I've purposely put 2019 numbers because since 2019, every country has gone down. So this is a historical view of human development in South Asian countries. You've seen this graph, but probably not in this way, right? So every year the UN, this is the report we had done, UN measures human development by measuring these three things. It nearly always goes up. It's a number between 0 and 1. 0 is totally bad, 1 is totally perfect. Pakistan is about 152nd. In 1990, we were at 0.404, 17, 562, 2019, 560. ठीक है? Basically, आपने उस line की shape देखनी है. Line should always go up because there is more resources in society, right? So that 500 million number that Ali was saying should hopefully show up somewhere here. Your test, your responsibility is not just how much your company is sold for. Does it translate into changing this graph? Maybe I'm asking too much of you, but I think that should be reasonable. Otherwise, something is missing somewhere. कुछ ना कुछ टूट रहा है. That is Pakistan. Pakistan को gauge करने का हमारे पास एक ही तरीका होता है. How is India doing, right? So that's how India is doing, and you can see the wedge. You can see the wedge. But the interesting thing is, it's not just India. Look at what Sri Lanka is doing, right? Why is Sri Lanka up there? Any very quick answer? Don't have time. What is the magic? Despite more terrorism, education. Essentially education. I had Sri Lankan teachers. Pump education into a system, human development goes up, right? Let us make it more interesting. Afghanistan. This is now before the Taliban. This is 2019. Why did it pump up? Because you pumped in basic health and basic education, and that's going to lift things, right? So how do you really make differences? Afghanistan is a different case. Now let us make it really interesting. That's Bangladesh. That's Bangladesh. Look at Bangladesh starting below Pakistan, going above. Why? Professor wala question, pop quiz. Why? One answer is women, Grameen, Dr. Yunus, women, but how it translates is population. Bangladesh had a slightly higher population than what is now Pakistan in 1971. Basically take that graph, population equal kar dein, they are below. It's a one number change. वो जो आप wedge देख रहे हैं is simply and only a factor that Bangladesh's population today is much lower than Pakistan, even though it was higher than Pakistan in 71. एक number को denominator को change करें, सारी math change जाती है. And that's again because of the empowerment of women, because they become decision makers. Nepal, right? So the point of showing this is, essentially, I think this is a measure of your ecosystem. This is the ecosystem in which your ecosystem is embedded. You've been too kind. I'm going to start wrapping up with just a few slides, and I promise to shut up after that. You've all heard this statement. 2020 was a year like no others. We had to do these talks on Zoom. We had people sort of trying to figure out how to connect, right? This is what my 2020, everything was breaking down. This was what my 2020 looked like. I discovered Zoom. There is nothing good that has come up out of Zoom except the background. So this was my teaching the class in sustainable development. Every week I could change my background to match what I was talking about. But let me tell you what else happened in 2020. Right? And again, Afia knows this. While we were all busy on Zoom, here is what was happening in 2020. January 2020, hottest January ever recorded since we started recording. February 2020, second hottest February ever since we recorded. March, second hottest March. April, second hottest April. Hottest May, hottest June. इस वक्त तक आपने tweet करना भी बंद कर दिया था. You'd become so used to it, you stopped tweeting. You really did. I was counting it, right? You get into this, you get into what I'm talking about. Hottest ever. Third hottest October. Hottest November. December became slightly different with the 8th. Between 2020 and now, 6 of these have been broken. 6 of these have been broken. This is the climate change. I'm not going to show you a picture of the flood because you've seen enough. Here is, I no longer put future pictures because this is not a future problem. I hope you can see that line. This is actual recorded temperature for every month of every year since we have been recording 30, 46, 44, right? For every month, that is the 1.5 line that you hear about, that is the 2 line. Right? Those are the sort of barrier science is telling us कि इनको break करोगे तो ये जो flood है doesn't become sort of an unusual event, it becomes the norm. This is not a future issue. Now you may be saying, जी ठीक है Professor साहब चंगी गल है, I don't live on or everywhere in the planet, I live in a place. And my place yesterday was a wonderful, beautiful evening. मैंने sea view पे walk की थी. You choose the place you live in. Same data I've put it on for every point that we have temperature for on Earth ever since we've been recording temperature. This is not a future issue, right? 1959, 1967, 1975, you can see sort of that rising. The point I'm trying to, bada simple sa ek point hai. The future we are talking about, in the future that you are talking about for your companies, this is a driving contextual reality. This is not about putting one solar panel here or there. This is about impacts of climate change, which are happening now as we are doing it. I'm wrapping up. I'm so sorry for taking too long. The point is it's global. This 1.5 thing is real. And what this really means, by the way, jo piche itni colorful hai, this is not just an homage to your colorfulness. That's actually a graph of global temperature for every year. And it tells you where we are. We are living, therefore, in what I have been calling in my writings the age of adaptation. The challenge for the ecosystem that you are maturing in is to learn to adapt. There is no adaptation solution that will come off the shelf from anywhere else. The 2 forces I talked about, youth and climate, neither of them have solutions that you can take off the shelf from anywhere else in the world. They will have to be developed here. That, I believe, is your responsibility. Thank you again for having me here. Thank you for giving me this time.